Good day everyone, welcome to ITS 101 Computer Programming 1. For this week's lesson, we're going to have another pre-recorded class in continuation to our discussion about C++ programming. So be sure to watch the entire video, listen and understand to the lessons attentively. After this class, there will be learning assessment and assignment. The assessment will be given through Google form. The link will be given to you by the end of this class. So my name is Juleus, Publico, your instructor. And today we are going to continue our lesson with arithmetic operators for C++. By the way, if you have any questions or comments, share it with the class. Comment your questions once this class is uploaded through our Facebook group or on our Facebook chat groups. To review our past lessons, we discussed about working with variables, particularly variable output and user input. If you haven't watched that video yet, or if you wish to review, just copy the link that you have right now on your screen or copy the image once I've already uploaded the presentation file. So today we are going to talk about operators, particularly the arithmetic operators. Operators are special type of functions that takes one or more arguments and produces a new value. For example, addition, subtraction, multiplication, etc. These are all operators. Operators are used to perform various operations on variables and constants. Much like in our mathematics classes before, back when we were still back in elementary to high school, and maybe now under our algebra classes, C++ operators are used to perform various operations on variables and constant. So here is an example of a C++ operator. So as you can see, we have here the arithmetic operation, which is, of course, addition. So the operation here is result is equals to a plus b, which a is equals to 5 and b is equals to 6. So we can assume that the output should be 11. So that is how an operator works. So there are many different operators in C++. We have arithmetic operators, assignment operators, relational operators, logical operators, bitwise operators, and assignment operators. However, for this course, we are just going to focus on the four main operators of C++. So we have arithmetic operators, assignment operators, relational operators, logical operators. Okay. Again, we are going to start with our discussion with arithmetic operators. Arithmetic operators are used to perform common mathematical operation. So we have here the table of the list of arithmetic operators. So we have plus, which is of course addition. It adds together two values. For example, a plus b. And then we have minus, which is subtraction. It subtracts one value from another. Example, a minus b. And then we have times, which is of course multiplication. It multiplies two values. So we have a times b. But instead of using the x, which of course that is a character, in C++ programming we'll be using the asterisk. Okay, and then we have divide, which is division. It divides one value by another. So we'll be using this / symbol. And then we have the percent sign, which is modulus. It returns the division remainder. An example is a modulus b. So what does it mean? Basically, we are trying to get the remainder of the division. So for example, 3 divided by 2. So that is 1 remainder 1. So the answer must be, or the modulus would be number 1. Okay, more of that later on. And then we have plus plus, which means increment. It increases the value of the variable by 1. So for example, plus plus a. So let's say a is equals to 6. What would be plus plus a? So that would be 7, because it increased the value of a variable by 1. Okay, and then we have two minus signs, which is decrement. Decreases the value of a variable by 1. Example, minus minus a, or decrement of a. So let's say a is equals to 5, then the decrement of a must be 4. Alright, arithmetic operators are used only for integral data types. So when we say integral data types, these are the data types that can perform mathematical operation. Okay, that will be integer and floating point or double floating point, because these are the two data types where we can perform mathematical operators. Can we perform mathematical operators of strings? Let's say Julius plus Julius. Okay, we cannot perform any mathematical operations for any other data types aside from integer and float or double. So arithmetic operators is only for the integer, floating point, or double. Okay? Example. So let's take a look at the example that we have here. These are examples of arithmetic operators. Let's take a look on the first line. We have given variables are integer a is equals to 5, b is equals to 6, and then sum. So basically we have three variables here, a, b, and sum. So operation is we're going to add a value of 5 and 6. So the operation should be result is equals to a plus b, right? And then of course the result should be 11. Another example, integer a is equals to 7, and then b is equals to 2, and then difference. We have three variables again, and our goal here is to subtract. So the operation must be the difference equals a minus b. Of course, the result should be difference is equals to 5, because 7 minus 2 is 5. Okay, another example. We have integer a equals 3, integer b is equals to 9, and then another product. And our goal is to multiply the two values. So we have product is equals to a times b. Again, we're not going to be using the x, but instead we are going to use the asterisk. Okay, and of course 3 times 9 is equals to 27. And then we have another example. Float a is equals to 5, b is equals to 4, c is equals to 7, and average. And our goal here is to get the average of these three numbers. We have average is equals to a plus b plus c divided by 3. So there are a few things that I'd like to point out when it comes to performing arithmetic operators on float. Okay, first is maybe you've noticed that the a plus b plus c is enclosed with parentheses. Why is that so? Because as we all know, as you can probably remember in your previous mathematics discussion, there is this method called FEMDAS or MDAS, okay, where M stands for multiplication, D stands for division, A stands for addition, and then S stands for subtraction. That means the multiplication comes first, division comes second, addition comes third, and then subtraction comes last. Okay, now if given that we don't put the parentheses first, what is going to happen is that the division will begin first. So basically, if we're going to remove the parentheses, a plus b plus c divided by 3, the c divided by 3 will be performed first, and then followed by a plus b. That will result to a different answer, correct? That's why we are going to adapt to the rules of mathematical operators, which is FEMDAS. That means parentheses, and then exponential values, and then MDAS. So that's why we have to enclose the addition in parentheses first, because parentheses comes first before the division. Alright? Another thing is that if you can notice, we put float before the number 3. The reason is we have to declare on float values when performing a mathematical operators to produce a decimal point output, because if we're going to remove the float, the answer would only be 5. So for our program to produce decimal point value, we have to put a float anywhere in this operation. So we can either put the float before the A, or before the B, before the C, or before the 3. If you can declare at least one float on every float variables on the mathematical operation, then the compiler will acknowledge that, and then instead of just displaying a whole number, it will add the decimal points. Okay, so that is very important. Let's have another example here. So this is to get the modular value or the remainder value. So we have int a is equals to 5, b is equals to 2, and then remainder. So again, our goal here is to get the remainder of these two, the 5 and 2. So the operation is remainder is equals to 5 modulo 2. So first, the compiler will divide 5 by 2. So the answer should be 2, right? However, there is remainder 1. And then the compiler will output remainder 1 because that is the remainder. And another example here, we have int a is equals to 5 and then increment. So our goal here is to add one value to the variable a. So how do we do that? We just put a plus plus before a. That means we are about to add one value increase from our variable. So since our variable is 5, then the increment should be 6. Again, that should be before the variable. Okay? Another example is we have int a is equals to 5, and this time we are going to decrement. So again, the decrement must be done before the variable. So the operation should be decrement is equals to minus minus a. And then the output result should be 4 because our original variable value is 5, and then since we just declared that we are going to decrement, and again, decrement means removing or decreasing one value. So 5, and then we're going to take one value out of it. Decrement should be 4. Okay, so let's try to perform this particular program. So let's open up our dev C++. Okay, we have here our IDE, the dev C++ version 5.11. So again, let's start with file, new, and then project. Make sure we're under basic, and then let's select console application. Make sure we're under C++ project, and then let's enter our file name or project name. So in our case, let's just say arithmetic. Okay, and then press OK. Alright, allow me just to create a new folder here, and then C++ projects. And then save. Alright, we're going to remove all of it, and let's start a new one. Okay, so again, we are going to create a program that will perform simple arithmetic operation. So let's start with our header file. And then we'll declare that we'll be using the standard namespace library. And then let's start a program. So we'll perform simple arithmetic operation. So let's start with addition. Let's say we have int a is equals to 50, and then b is equals to, let's say, 45, and then we have sum. Okay, so we have our variables. So we're going to add a plus b, and then we're going to put the value, which is 50 plus 45, to the variable sum. So we're going to say sum is equals to a plus b. Alright, and then let's not forget our terminator. So we already set the value for the sum, which is equals to a plus b. So basically, the compiler will add a value of a, which is 50, and a value of b, which is 45. So we can expect that the answer should be 95, right? So let's check. Let's see if that's the case. So we're going to ask the compiler to display the result. So let's just say C out sum, and then let's end the program, return 0, save, and let's say arithmetic, save that one, and then F11 to compile and run. Okay, the answer is 95. Okay, so that is a basic arithmetic operation, which is addition. Let's have another one. Let's close this. Let's say minus. So we're just going to change that. Instead of minus, instead of plus, we'll say minus here. Okay, all right. So this time, our compiler will instead subtract the value 45 from 50. So that means it's gonna say 50 minus 45. So we can expect the answer should be 5, right? So let's check. Okay, let's just change all of our variables from sum to diff. So we have here diff, and then let's change it to diff, and then this one. By the way, diff is just a shortcut for difference. For variable names, it would be totally up to you. Okay, so let's save that and then run. Okay, the answer is, or the output is 5. Now how about if you're going to multiply? So let's change that to prod, or just a shortcut for product. And then let's change this to asterisk. Again, this is for multiplication. So we can expect that the value of the prod should be 50 multiplied to 45. So let's run, let's save, and then F11. The product should be 2,250. That is for multiplication. So let's try division. Okay, since we are going to be dividing two values, there are chances that the result could be decimal point. Alright? We're going to use the float or double data type. But in our case, let's just use float. So let's say float quote. Quote is just a shortcut for quotient. Let's change that to quote, and then the value should be okay. Alright, now if you can remember a while ago, if we are going to expect decimal value, we have to declare at least one of the variables we're going to declare that will be using float. Okay, so how do we do that? Again, we're going to add float enclosed in parentheses on either the variable. Okay, so we can either put it on A, or we can put it here in B, before the B, or we can add both. Okay, but we can just add one. For this example, we're going to add it to the A. So this time, we're going to tell our compiler that we are going to divide A by B. So 50 divided by 45. Okay, so let's check, save, and then run. Okay, the answer, it says 1.111. Now, obviously that is a float right there, or it's a decimal. So basically, it worked. However, what will happen if we're going to remove the float? It will still work, however, it will not return the decimal value. Okay, so that is very important that whenever we are performing mathematical operations for float variables, or every time that we are going to expect decimal value, always we have to put float before either of the variables involved. Okay, alright, that's it. So that is for division. So what else? We have modulo. Now, for example, if we want to get the quotient as well as the remainder, so instead of displaying 1.111, we want to have the exact value of 0.111, or the exact remainder. So how are we going to do that? So first is, let's change our variable quotient back to integer, since again we are now expecting that the answer should be whole number, and then the decimal will be translated to actual value or actual remainder. So we have quote, which is part of the integer variable now, and then the modulo. Okay, so we have 4 variables now. We have a and b, and then the quotient, and then the remainder. Okay, so let's remove this. Okay, so how we're going to perform that? So first is we're going to divide a and b. Of course, since the quotient is an integer now, it will return a whole number. So let's go back. Quote is equals to a divided by b, and then for modulo, we're going to say a modulo b. Okay, what will happen is that first, in quote, it will return the value 50 divided by 45, but just the whole number. However, for modulo, it will return the value of the quotient. The quotient and the remainder rather. Okay, so let's check. So we have here cout code. Let's say, let's put the value for the remainder at the bottom. So let's check. Let's save and then let's run. Okay, so the first line, that is the quotient, which is 50 divided by 45, right? And then the second line, we have the remainder of 50 divided by 45. So let's check. 50 divided by 45, obviously that is 1, remainder 5. Okay, so that's why we have 5 in here. Alright, so that is the modulo. Now, what else? We have the increment. So let's remove all of it, and then let's just have one value to be incremented. So let's say a is equals to 100. Now we are going to increment that value. What are we going to do? Again, we're going to use the increment operator. So let's say the new value should be b, and b is equals to plus a. So now the value of b is an incremented value of a, which is 100. So we are expecting that the value of b should be, of course, 101. So let's check. Okay, let's save, and then let's run F11. Okay, it says here it's 101. Okay, same concept with decrement. If we're going to say minus a, which is decrement, then the value of 100, which is the value of a, which is 100, will be less than one value down. So we have 99. Okay, so that is arithmetic operators. So we've performed a simple mathematical operator between addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulus or remainder, and then we perform decrement and increment value. So what to do next? It would be perfect for us to create a simple calculator. Okay, so let's close this. Let's have a new project, file, new project. Make sure we're still under basic. Make sure to select C++ project, and then we will say simple calculator. Okay, press OK. Now, if you're already working on a project and then decided to create a new one, you will be asked to close the previous project to start a new one. So what are you going to do? Just press yes, and then press yes, and then save here. Right? Let's remove all of it and let's start a new one. So we have our header file, which is include IO stream, and then we will declare that we'll be using the standard namespace library. And then let's start our program. Let's have a comment just for us to be reminded on what are we going to do. So again, this program will use the arithmetic operators. Alright, so let's start. What would be our variables? So we have int. Okay, this is just a calculator that will allow us to add or perform multiple arithmetic operators with of 2 values only. Okay, so we have let's say num1, that is for our first number, and then num2 for our second number, and then we have integer for, of course, our sum, the difference, and then the and then we have the product, and then the modulus, and the increment and decrement. All right, and then we will have float for division, which is code. Okay, again, for declaring variable names, it would be totally up to you. So we've already declared our variable. First is we're going to make sure that our program will be a little bit useful and user-friendly. So first is we're going to say, welcome to my simple C++ calculator. All right, and then let's have another line. Let's add two separate lines, and then let's say again, please enter the first number. Okay, and then whenever the user will enter the first number, it will be saved to num1, which is our first variable. Okay, next is we're going to ask the user to please enter the second number. Alright, so whenever the user will enter the second number, we are going to save it to our variable num2. Alright, so now we already have values for num1 and num2. What to do next? We're going to perform the arithmetic operators now. So let's start with the sum or the addition. So sum is equals to, sum is, if you can remember, our variable for addition. So sum is equals to num1 plus num2. Alright, and then next is difference. So we have diff is equals to num1 minus num2. Alright, and then we have for our product for multiplication, so we have num1 times num2, and then for our modulo we have mod num1 modulo num2. Okay, and then increment. So for increment, let's just say we are going to increment the value of num1, and then we are going to decrement the value of num2. Okay, so let's start with increment. Let's change that a little bit. Plus plus num1. So that means whatever the value of num1 that we are going to put, the compiler will add one value on top of it. Okay, and that is only for the num1. And then let's decrement the value of num2. So we have minus minus num2. Okay, and then lastly we have our division. So we'll just put it somewhere here. So let's say quote, that is of course shortcut for quotient, and then let's add float num1 divided by num2. All right, so now we have set the operation for our simple calculator. Now it would be time for us to display the result. So let's say cout, that is for output. Let's say sum is equals to the variable sum. All right, and then end line. Then let's say difference, and then diff, and then another line. Let's have our product here, and then the variable product, and then end line. And then let's have our quotient, and then we have the remainder, which is mod, and then another line, and then let's have the increment and decremented value of num1 and num2. So we have, let's say the increment value of the increment value of the first number, and then let's say increment and another line, and then lastly decrement value of the second number, and we have decrement and end line. Alright, I think we're done. We're just going to add our terminator. That means we're already at the end of our program. Let's save. Let's say simple calculator and then save. Alright, let's just have a quick view, see if there are no errors. Okay, I don't think there is, but if there is, the compiler will tell us. Let's run. The first thing that it's going to say is, of course, welcome to my simple C++ calculator. Please enter the first number. Let's say 85. That is our first number. Enter. And then please enter the second number. Let's say 50. Okay. Alright, that is the number that come up, so deal with it. Alright. Sum is equals to 135. Difference is 35. Product is 4,250. Quotient is 1.7. Remainder is 35. And then the increment value of the first number, which is 85, is 86. And then the decrement number value of the second number, which is 50, is 49. Alright, so we've just created our very first program that performs mathematical or arithmetic operation. Okay? Right, that's it. So if we're going to check our code one by one, so we can see the addition is a plus b, subtraction is a minus b, multiplication is a, and asterisk b. Remainder is percent a percent b, and then plus a for increment value, minus b for decrement value, and then the quotient we are going to perform a divided by b, but we'll have to add float on either of the variable. So we can either add the float before a or before b. It would be totally up to you, as long as we can declare at least one floating value of the variables. Okay? Alright, so I think that's it. Let's have a practice activity. Let's solve the following mathematical problem by writing a C++ program with arithmetic operators. So problem number 1. Thomas has 3,000 pesos saved up. He uses his money to buy a video game. The video game costs 2,299 pesos. How much money does he have left? Alright, so we're going to create a program on that particular problem. So what are we going to do first? First is we're going to determine what operation are we going to use. Okay, let's analyze the problem. Since we are looking for the money that he have left after he purchased the video game that cost 2,299, obviously we are going to be using subtraction. We are going to subtract 2,299 from 3,000. Okay, so let us declare a variable. Let's say our variable should be int savings, that is the 3,000, and then cost, which is 2,299, and then let's say remaining as the value of 3,000 minus 2,299. Okay, so let's try. Let's open up our .c++ again. Let's say int savings is equals to 3,000, and then cost is equals to 2,299, and then remaining. Again, the savings is for how much Thomas has saved, and then the cost is the variable for how much the video game costs, and then the variable remaining is for the amount that he have left. So we'll say remaining is equals to savings minus cost, and then we're just going to display this. So let's say cout remaining, and then return 0, save. Let's say problem 1. Oh, I'm sorry, remaining. Okay, it says here that Thomas still has 701 pesos remaining after he purchased a video game cost 2299. That's it. We've helped Thomas determine how much money does he have left using C++ programming with arithmetic operators. Okay, let's take a look on our second problem here. Jemai put 1,000 pesos in a bank account that gains 20% interest annually. How much money will be in the account after 1 year? So how are we going to create a program that will determine the money that will be in the account after 1 year, given that there will be 20% interest annually? Okay, so first is we're going to determine what operations are we going to use. So first is, what would be the 20% interest of 1,000? So we'll be using multiplication. And then, of course, once we already get the actual amount of the interest, we're going to add it to the original deposit money. Whatever it is, the 20% of 1,000, we're going to add it back to 1,000 for us to get the amount of money after 1 year. So let's declare our variables. Let's say int deposit, that is the initial deposit, which is 1,000, and then annual underscore interest, that is 20%. But of course, once we'll be using it to perform mathematical operation, 20% is equals to 0.20. So again, annual interest is equals to 0.20, which is 20%. And then we are going to determine the interest value and then the new balance after we've already added the interest, the 20% of 1,000. So let's try. Okay, let's declare our variable. So we have int for our initial deposit, which is equals to 1,000, and then we will have float for annual interest. Okay, the reason why we're using float, because again the value of our interest is 0.20, right, which is 20%. So we'll be using float for that. Now, if we're going to multiply a number to a decimal point, there are tendencies that it will also result a decimal value. So we'll still be using float for our interest. And then what are we going to solve is how much money on Jemai's bank account after 1 year. So that is going to be integer new balance, and then that's it. Right, so now that we have our variables, what are we going to do now? So first is we're going to determine what is 20% of 1,000. Okay, so how we're going to do that? That will be interest is equals to deposit multiplied to annual interest, which is 0.20. Now remember, for us to allow our compiler to return decimal value, we have to somehow declare that is going to be a float. So what are we going to do? We're going to put float before either of the variables. So in our case, we're just going to put float after the annual interest. Now, second, once our compiler know what is 20% of 1,000, we're going to use that to be added to our initial deposit, right? So let's say new balance is equals to interest plus deposit. Okay? So now that our interest has value, we can now add it to our deposit for us to get the new balance. Let's check. There will be a total of new balance in the account after 1 year. And return 0, save, and then let's save it right here. Problem number 2. Let's run. Alright, there will be a total of 1,200 in the account after 1 year. Let's check. So 20% of 1,000, that is 200. Now 200 plus 1,000 is 1,200. Okay, so that's it. That is for our problem number 2. Let's have a look on another problem here. Okay, let's have a look on our problem number 3. Mary surveyed the students in her school to find out what their favorite sports were. Out of 1,200 students, 455 said basketball was their favorite sport. 418 said volleyball is their favorite, and the rest said that they love other sports. Compute the percentage of students according to their favorite sport. Again, our goal here is to compute the percentage of students according to their favorite sport. That means how many percent out of 1,200 loves basketball, how many percent of students out of 1,200 loves volleyball, and how many students out of 1,200 students loves other sports. Okay, so what are the operations that we're going to use? We have division. This is to get the percentage of students who loves the sport over the entire population. And then we have subtraction to get the total of students who loves other sport, and then we're going to multiply it back to 100 to get the proper percent format. Okay, so if you can see, we all know that there is 455 students who loves basketball, there are 418 students who love volleyball, but we don't know the number of students who loves other sport. Are we going to subtract 45 and 418 from 120 to get the rest, right? If you can remember in our previous example, in computing percentage, we have to use decimal points, right? However, we don't want a decimal output. We want it to be a whole number that represents the percent. Okay, so that's why we're going to multiply it back to 100 to get the proper percent format. Let's declare our variable first. So we have int total students, which is 1,200, basketball 455, volleyball for 418, and int others. And then we have float for percentage of basketball, percentage of volleyball, and percentage of others. Alright, so let's start. Let's open up our dev C++ again. Okay, so let's start with our variable. So we have int, that is total students, which is 1,200. Okay, and then int for basketball, which is 455, and we have int for volleyball, which is a total of 418, and then int others. We don't have any value yet, we're going to find it out. And then we have float to get the percentage of basketball, and then we have percentage of volleyball, and then percentage of others. Okay, now that we have our variables, what are we going to do next? First is we're going to get how many students loves other sports. So how do we do that? We're going to subtract 455, 418 from 1,200. Okay, so let's say others, okay, that is for the number of students who loves other sports, is equals to total students minus basketball, and then minus volleyball. Now that we have the value for other students who love other sports, so we are going to determine the percentage of students who loves basketball, volleyball, and other sports. Okay, how do we do that? Let's start with the basketball. So we have percentage basketball is equals to, since we are dealing with percentage here, we are expecting to be using decimal points. In this case, or we're going to declare it as float. So we have float basketball divided by total students. Okay, next is we have percentage of volleyball is equals to float volleyball divided by total students. Okay, and then lastly, percentage for others is equals to float others divided by total students. Alright, let's check it one by one. Okay, so if you can remember, we will first determine the number of students who love other sports, because we don't know what would be the number of students who loves other sports. We only knew about the students who loves basketball, we only knew about the students who loves volleyball, but we don't know how many students who loves other sports. Okay, so to determine, we have to subtract 455 and 418 from the total student, which is 1,200, for us to get the number of students who love other sports, right? Okay, that is what we did here. We can now determine the percentage of the students who loves basketball, as well as for volleyball and others. Okay, so to do that, we have to use our float variable, which is perc underscore basketball. Perc is just shortcut for percentage, is equals to basketball divided by total students. However, since we are going to compute the percentage, we can expect that it will return a decimal value. we will declare float. And then same thing with the volleyball and others. Alright, so next is we're going to display the output. Let's see if it will work. So let's say basketball is equals to, and then the value of basketball is per basketball, and then end line. And then let's say, let's display the value for volleyball. And then others. Then let's end our program by declaring our terminator. Let's save that. Problem number 3. Okay, it says here that the basketball is 0.37916, volleyball is 0.34833, others is 0.2725. Well, obviously it worked. It performed the arithmetic operators that we asked it to do. However, it's not by percent, it's just decimal point. Well, of course, this 0.379167 can be translated to an actual percent. How do we do that? We have to multiply all of the percentage to 100 for us to get the actual. So let's modify our operation just a little bit. So here, we are going to multiply it to 100. Alright, same thing with the rest. Okay, let's add percent at the end of each line. So we have percent, and then let's have another percent here. Alright, and I think that's it. Alright, let's check. Let's try it again. Alright, now it will now say that the basketball is 37.9167%, and then volleyball has 34.8333%. The other students are 27.25%. Okay, so I think that's it. We've just successfully created a program that will determine the percentage of students who love a specific sport. Okay, so that will be all for this week's lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed it and you learned something from it. Now, again, if you have any questions, I know it's a little bit complicated as programming ought to be, but you can always approach me for any questions, okay? For today's assessment, copy the link that you have here on your screen. The deadline would be December 4th of 2020. That will be 11:59 p.m. For now, it's not going to be open if you're going to open up this form, because I want this video to have a few 100% views first. That is to make sure that at least a few people have watched the video completely from start to end before I'm going to open it up. Okay, so make sure to watch the entire video sooner so that I can open up this link sooner. Then the assignment. For your assignment, it will be posted through our Google Classroom. But here it is. Write a program that will solve the following mathematical problem. A decade ago, Oaksville population was 67,624 people. Now it is 190% larger. So what is Oaksville's current population and the number of increase from a decade ago and now? Now your goal is to determine what is the current population after the 190% increase, and you have to determine also the number of increase. So basically, what is 190% of 67,624? So your program is expected to perform two outputs. First is to determine the current population, and then of course the increase of the population. And then the deadline would be Friday, December 4, 2020 at 11:59 p.m. Again, if you have any questions or anything else that you would like to clarify, if there are some parts of this lesson that needs clarification, let me know. You can comment your questions down to the Facebook post, or you can send it through our Facebook chat groups. Okay? Alright, so that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for making this far of the video. And then please keep safe and God bless us all.